Evie, it's time to do the video. Okay. I am back with another Destiny 2 video. Today is obviously the big showcase, the final shape reveal, the Season of the Witch reveal and launch. This is what I call the Destiny coverage Super Bowl, where there is so much to get through. I just finished writing my article summary about this. I was live tweeting it. They're still doing the FAQ on stream right now, but they were kind of just expanding on points that are already made. If there is any breaking huge news out of that, I will cover that later, but I don't know how long this is going to go, and there's a lot to do today, so I'm going to start recording this video. So this was split between the final shape itself, Season of the Witch, and then some kind of overall systems changes. And a good amount of this we did know. I would say we honestly knew the least about Season of the Witch because that has been like completely under wraps, whereas the final shape, at least we either knew stuff they've kind of talked about already or hinted at in like teaser trailers, and then the other half is a bunch of stuff they can't show because it would be too spoilery. And I think that was one of the biggest problems with the Witch Queen, was that we were doing all these seasonal activities and stuff, and we're like, we're going to resurrect Sevathrian and kill her, and it's like, obviously we don't kill her. Well, we kind of did, actually. But what they showed in the final shape is not really spoiling anything. Like, we go through the portal. I don't think that was, like, the biggest mystery on Earth. We face the Witness, whatever. But I don't think they want to get too much into detail about the story components there, so we're kind of left with, like, a lot of visual things and sort of more general descriptions, which I'm already seeing people go, it's underwhelming. Like, yeah, okay, maybe a little, but I kind of get why they did it this way or why they did it the way they have to do. In terms of the actual stuff that was shown, we're inside the Traveler. The zone is called the Pale Heart, and of the Pale Heart holds the key fame. This zone looks really cool. This was actually one of the neatest things I thought was shown off, was the actual zone itself. We're not doing Neomuna flashing city lights and things. We're doing, it's a zone that seems like it's kind of a gradient, where part of it's like based on your own consciousness to a certain extent, or the consciousness of the people that are there. And like when you're there, that kind of reshapes it in your image. I don't know, the Traveler is really weird. So, let's roll with it. And so a lot of this is going to be stuff from our past. We saw like variations of the Destiny 1 tower, for instance. I saw a lot of like old Russia stuff in there. And like, just don't say recycling. Like, it's in this case, I think I can grant that it's like a narrative thing, and it's not just they're too lazy to design a new zone, so they're bringing in the D1 tower. Like, I think this is being done for a specific purpose. I'm curious how many zones kind of will be pulled from the past and what those might look like, if it's all of them or if it's just like Earth. That's interesting. But then you transition into the witness's side of things, where he's built this monolith that kind of looks like his head, and then as you get over that way, he has transformed it into his consciousness, which is a bunch of weird shit. So like, there's obviously pyramid architecture over there. Like, we've seen that in the Witch Queen. We've seen that, a good amount, but it gets even weirder. There's a lot of hands everywhere. Giant statues. Like, I like the description that they gave of, it's like they take everything back together, or the Witness takes everything apart and then puts it back together like wrong. That's a cool way of describing it. It reminds me of kind of like Lovecraft, when he used to say, like, going to other dimensions, like the angles were all wrong or something like that. So yeah, that it looks like a very cool zone. They said that the main focus will be you're just thrust into the campaign immediately. You essentially can't do anything else except the campaign missions until you beat the campaign. They didn't really talk about heroic campaign and stuff, but I assume they're going to do the same. Their legendary campaign, I assume they're going to do the same thing they've done in the last two expansions, because I really like that. And then after that, you will have the Pale Heart open up as an exploration zone. I assume there will be more areas to it. They didn't really talk about its size. I don't know if it's going to be one of these 3-quadrant things that they kind of always do, or because this is the last expansion, if it will be any bigger than that. Obviously, I hope it is, but you never know. And they also said very specifically that the Witness will be the final boss of the raid, not the campaign. Kind of saw that coming. I didn't imagine we were going to fight the Witness in the campaign and the final boss be like Zebu or Wrath or something. well, I guess it rules out the theory that people thought the final boss is going to be the Traveler. I don't know. Maybe there could be some twists and turns in there, but who knows? But that is the final boss of the game, allegedly. In terms of more kind of on the ground stuff, there is a new enemy type, a what's it called, Subjugator, which looks like a mini Tormentor with a staff, I think, or a spear. They have stasis and strand powers, so they can like freeze you or suspend you and things like that. And they buff their allies somehow. They're not hive ghosts, so you don't have to like pop them once they're dead. I don't know what strength level they'll be. Probably not as beefy as a Tormentor, but like I don't know. Probably I would say like probably hive ghost like in terms of like being like a champion-ish health pool, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. All right, so well, I'll do the story. So the story they didn't really go much into. We go through the portal. It's going to be very focused on kind of the core group here: Zavala, Ikora, our ghost, and then the return of Cade. I don't know if this is Lance Reddick's Zavala doing lines for this, if he's a big part of the campaign. That hasn't been really made clear, and we know Keith David is taking over at some point, but we did not hear him in this, so I'm not sure about that. Ikora's not really been a main story character in a very long time, even though she's an OG member of the Vanguard. Ghost talks a lot in some of the trailers and previews for this, so he's back to talking, hooray. And then Cade, the way I interpret Cade here is I feel like, they didn't say this outright, but I feel like Cade is going to end up being part of the whole, the Traveler creates things based on your consciousness thing. So if you need a guide through this crazy landscape, we've created our own guide in the form of our friend Cade Six. And like, yeah, maybe he is conscious, like maybe he's not just like a hologram or like a ghost, like maybe it like kind of is a reformulated Cade, but I believe he exists probably because we like imagined him into existence, if that makes sense, based on the nature of this place. Like if you imagine old Russia, look, there's old Russia, like physically it's the same thing or whatever. But then we get to some other things where I would say the biggest miss of this entire presentation was the reveal of like, what big class editions are going to be. It is one new super per class, and it's a light super. So I was like kind of scrambling to write about this, so I didn't get a great look at the exact nature of all of these. But the Warlocks is kind of like Radiance, and Titans throws big Void Axes, and Hunter has, I think it was like bouncy Arc Knives or something. And so it's just one element for one class. 3 times. And so 3 total. And it's weird because the light subclasses are already classes that have 2 supers each, if, and one of them kind of has 2 variants to it usually, or sometimes. And now they're getting another one in one of the 3 elements, which is weird. And then this is opposed to Stasis and Strand, which have 1 super each. And even though, like, say, Strand is still pretty powerful, like, it does make them fall behind when they don't have, as many diverse options to rely on. And this is where it gets weird with the whole paid versus free thing. All the light subclasses are free, so those are the ones that get the most attention. I just talked about this with Stasis the other day. Like, Stasis has essentially been ignored for an entire year, or close to it. Both in terms of buffs, in terms of artifact stuff, like it's very ignored and it's falling behind, and it's because it's attached to a almost 3-year-old expansion, and you have to own that one expansion to do it. And Strand is attached to this expansion, so it creates this imbalance where previously the light subclasses were behind because they introduced Stasis with aspects and fragments, and light couldn't keep up. Now they did light 3.0. They're adding more light supers. They're adding more light aspects also alongside this, so I don't know. It does not seem like the right level of investment equally. And then, of course, this means there was no sixth subclass. The idea was that there was a leak and there was a red subclass, and the idea is that there always is going to be a red subclass, because obviously we need 3 darkness subclasses, 3 light subclasses, cover all the colors of the rainbow. Doesn't exist. I don't think this rules it out forever. Like, I still very much believe we probably will get a red subclass in the future. Siva, Resonance, whatever you think it is. But it's not coming with this expansion, and I know they just made Strand, and they haven't done, two new subclasses in a row before. But like Strand was supposedly pushed out of Witch Queen, so I kind of hoped they'd be able to do one here. And so I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of the new stuff being one super for light classes in each class. Not great. Everything else I'm not is down on, mainly that. But what else did they show? They talked about a few exotics. Pyramid Fusion Rifle that can apparently be Stasis or Strand. A Golden Gun Sniper Rifle. A Traveler Beam Channeling Trace Rifle. And then D1 weapons, Dragon's Breath, Red Death, and Kostov are all coming back. Dragon's Breath definitely had something with its fire pool. I don't know what they're going to change for Red Death to make it not like Crimson. And Kostov, I feel like Kostov is probably going to be one of those like crazily customizable weapons like Revision Zero. Just my theory. Not that it'll necessarily have an exotic mission because those are usually kept secret, but we'll see. The new subclass archetypes they've mentioned before, it's not just like, oh, we're doing a 5-burst sidearm instead of a 2-burst sidearm. It's like, okay, we're doing tracking rounds on a sidearm, and we're doing an auto rifle that can kill things and heal your allies. So that's really out there. I'm very curious about the whole auto rifle healing your teammates thing. Like, I guess, we have Lumina, which does this, but for a whole auto rifle to, like, be switching back and forth and, like, target lock and stuff like that, I'm just curious how it'll work. And so that was pretty much the final shape era stuff that they covered. We get into post-final shape stuff later, but I'll get into that in a minute. In terms of the current season, I guess there's not like a huge point in covering this too much because we are literally about to play it, or you are playing it right now as you listen to this in the background. It is a Savathûn season, except Savathûn is being channeled by Eris, turning Eris into Hive Eris. And then we do a bunch of things that feed Hive Eris power. I don't know, trinkets or something, offerings. I forget what it's called. However, the two activities they talked about did sound interesting. There is Savathûn Spire, which has, it's like there's random encounters in it. There's high enemy density. There's like a new Hive Magic seasonal ability system that we can use Hive Magic. So that sounds kind of cool. It's 3-man. And then the other one is also 3-man. It sounds like a kind of horde mode where you face a bunch of enemies and then get tributes or whatever they're called, and then you can cash them in and walk away. They call it a drop-in, drop-out activity. Hoping that's not going to screw with matchmaking and turn it into like the Reckoning, where like you join Reckoning and sometimes there's people doing it, sometimes there's not, and sometimes it's terrible. Like we'll see how that works in practice, but it sounds cool in theory, certainly. And they have something that's like build crafting this season. Is they have like a card deck, so you unlock different card abilities to do different powers and things. This might replace the seasonal vendor thing entirely. I think you might just be unlocking cards all season long. But yeah, that's sounds cool. If that's something that replaces the seasonal vendor and is more interesting than time-gated boxes. I mean, I guess now they're rectangles, but I don't know. It does sound cooler than a normal seasonal vendor. So we'll see how it goes. This did sound like a cool season, so we'll see how that works. In terms of systems, so they're essentially eliminating power level for everything except, this is almost like this now, but except Nightfalls and contest mode raids were the two specific ones that were mentioned. I don't know if that includes like trials or heroic legend lost sectors, things that you can kind of overlevel for. The whole power thing has been very screwed up to the point where it does feel like they're almost just throwing in the towel altogether. The other part of this is this new fire team power idea where you only need one person on your fire team to grind to the proper level to run like whatever, and then everyone else on your fire team will use that person's level. And I love to hear the clan talk about who's going to be the dedicated grinder so no one else has to do it. But I think it's a good idea. I think it opens it up for more accessibility. I just think that power has gotten so screwed up at this point. They're kind of just like, to hell with it, and like it's going to need a larger redesign in the future, because I don't think you can just do this forever. That just seems very weird. They are adding timeline reflections, which is an interesting idea. When I heard that, I was like, oh, they're going to put like they're going to show you cutscenes from the past or whatever. No, they're actually doing full missions, like some of the more iconic missions from the past game, past expansions, in terms of like kind of filling you in with the story. They said they will be modified a little bit to put even more lore from when they aired into the game. They mentioned something like Cade's last stand and like the mission where Cade dies from Forsaken. Like we'll be able to play that, and like that'll give people more context for Cade in the final shape. So I'm curious how these work. I don't think they're time gated by expansion. That would kind of defeat the whole purpose of doing that. It's an interesting idea. It's more than I thought they do, which I just thought they'd have like a wiki link or just a bunch of cutscenes or something. So we'll see. One of the biggest pieces of news is really the only thing they said about what happens after the final shape, and that is that they are changing the seasonal structure to not be seasons. Kind of seasons, but they're not called seasons, and there are less of them, but they're bigger. So after the final shape, there will be 3 episodes in a year instead of 4 seasons, and they will be longer. So 4 months, doing math, 4 months instead of 3 months, and then they are divided up into 3 acts per episode, and the acts will debut every 6-ish weeks, I think, and then there will be new things that come with those acts. I think this might replace the concept of like a weekly reset, so it would kind of turn it into something where you can maybe walk away a little longer or like grind what you want to grind, but like not have to come like, okay, it's Tuesday 1 o'clock, let's do my 30 minutes of story mission and like whatever. Like that seems like it might be changing. They listed the names for them. What are they? Echoes, they show Vex, Revenant, they show Scorn, Heresy, they show a bunch of Hive Swords. All of this has to deal with the aftermath of the events of the final shape, which we don't know. Again, all they said is the Traveler and Darkness and Witness and Light saga is over in some capacity. We don't know who dies, who flees, who whatever. I'm assuming we're keeping our Light and Darkness powers. That seems pretty clear to me, but it will change the nature of things. They also said you can do these in any order, which I'm not sure what that means. I asked someone about this. Okay, so they're not narratively connected. So the order you play them in doesn't matter. That is what they're saying. So they are independent stories that are not necessarily, it's not a chain leading into the next expansion. It's, you can play them however you want, and you won't feel behind if it's later in the year, and then you can circle back. I don't know how much they cost. I'm wondering if they're higher price now since there's less of them. I need to ask that too. But, so yeah, that is all of it. The FAQ, again, is, I don't know if it's still going on now, but those are the big reveals. I think they're keeping a lot of stuff about the final shape under wraps. I don't think we're going to really be able to judge it until we're playing it. They've made a big point that like narratively this is going to be great. Like this is going to answer all your questions. Like they really get the Lightfall. Like they don't want to do another Lightfall. Granted, I'm sure they didn't want to do a Lightfall in the first place, but they really seem to be pushing the point that like this will be a satisfying conclusion. But really all we can say is like the zone looks cool, and I hope the campaign is good, and we'll see about other things like the weapons, the sandbox, and like these systems changes and things. I'm very excited to start on this season right now. I need to be playing Starfield, but I need to devote some amount of time to this season as well. And so it sounds very cool. I like the whole Eris Sabathine thing. And then system changes. I need to know more about how episodes are going to look and function and cost and things, but definitely think that we needed some sort of shakeup. I think the same model for years and years and years needed change almost for its own sake. Like, that sounds weird, but like, even if it was like, okay, even if the content delivery was like still okay and, substantive, like it needed some sort of shakeup, and hopefully this will be that shakeup. But, all right, so I got more things to do. I don't know if the servers are up. I'm going to go try and play the season. I will have more thoughts on probably the season debut tomorrow, both in article and video form. More opinions on this showcase as I process them, but yes, thank you for taking the time to watch this. If you already watched like a 40-minute showcase, and probably a bunch of other content creators with more more relevance than me talking about this too. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you soon.